Oh, great. Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is an historic moment, I'm thinking. This is Development and Government Relations Subcommittee of the City Council, February 29th, Leap Day, so happy Leap Day. With me is Ward 2 Councilor, Councilor Roman, and 2 at-large councilors, Councilor McGivern, Councilor Sullivan. Also in the chamber is City Council President Kevin Jordan. And so we have with us, and I'd like to take, if the committee would indulge, number 3, suspend the rules and take number 3 out of order, if I could get a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking that out of order? Aye. Okay. All right, with us is Councilor, at-large Councilor Tallman. So we have, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. It's got a full house. Okay. So, this is a special permit application for a renewal of a home occupation permit of Mr. Gerardo Ramos of 275 Sargent, Holyoke, Mass, for marine reef habitat to increase the flow of customers to 5 per month. And Mr. Ramos, you're with us tonight? Okay. Yeah, we'll have you speak in a second. Just see if that microphone's on. No, you can come to the mic. See if that's on. Just,
Yes.
sounds like it's on. Okay, great. Okay, so we've got to go into my notes here for a second because this is, okay, so if I could get a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
So moved.
Just need a
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. On the motion, public hearing, all in favor? Aye. Okay, public hearing is now open. Okay, and I've read the notice. We were duly advertised. Our butters were notified, and so Mr. Ramos, so this is great to have you here. You're very tall, so turn the microphone up so because this is being recorded. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So why don't you tell us what's happening, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Yes, I own a small business called Marine Reef Habitat, and what we do is that we import corals.
What's the name exactly?
Marine Reef Habitat.
Okay, thank you.
What we do is that we import coral, and then we cut it into small pieces. We let it sit in a tank for a period of 3 months, and we go around each year. We do about 4 or 5 shows, all over Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. And we bring our product there and we offer it to the public. We also do wholesale of coral, and we got about 4 pet stores owners that are very particular, of what they want. So the idea of increasing the flow of people is because they like to, cherry pick the coral. Coral is very beautiful in colors, patterns, so they like to come and pick the coral for themselves. And that's been a problem because when I do have them come, then I'm a little concerned and afraid that I might get in trouble with the city because I don't have that permit to allow people to come into my garage and pick up the coral. So I would like to ask permission so I can increase the flow for business, so I can keep growing the business I can eventually find a place in Holyoke, save enough money, work on the credit until we can buy a place in Holyoke and move the business to a retail area and wholesale.
Okay, Mr. Ramos, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'll stay there because we'll have a couple questions for you, I'm sure, so some comments. That's what we do here, we make comments.
Yeah.
But I know that the city council president is dying to speak, but we'll see if any members of the committee want to speak first. Councilor Tallman.
Yes. Thanks for coming down, Gerardo. Did you ever have this down on Cabot and Main Street at one time?
Yes, I did.
In that building? Yeah.
Well, we encountered some issues with rent and the amount of money we were making and stuff like that. So I moved the business to home into the economy get better because that's what's on 08, and everybody that know that on 08 the economy got a little bit rough. And this is an item that is basically a lot of people who have acquired this coral are hobbyists. So during the summer it dies a little, but during the winter it picks up. The idea of Marine Reef Habitat is that one day we'll want to be able to grow coral using renewable energy. That will lower the cost of energy because you use a lot of energy to maintain the aquarium tank and the system running, basically a lot of scientific equipment. That's our goal. And hope to achieve that goal in the city of Holyoke one day.
Now, when you state your, I know this is renewal because you've done this before. When you state you have increased to 5 per month, so that's only basically one person a week?
Yes. Well,
So
we
you-
discussed when they come in, they usually purchase a lot. These are pet store owners who are Connecticut, Rhode Island, and some in Massachusetts.
Okay, and when they come in, do they drive? Do they,
Yes, sir. They drive. They drive the vehicle.
is there spots in front of your property or you have a parking lot where you
I
can?
got a lot of parking space. I got a lot of a yard, and I can fit about 4 cars in my yard. But just to keep the neighbors at peace, I try to avoid, the people coming in to find a retail place that I can build a business like I want to do it.
Okay, and this, I'm somewhat familiar with the address. Is it right near the park?
Yes, sir. Right across the street from the park.
Right across from it? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ramos, thank you. To date, there's been no complaints. A big key about a home occupation is your neighbors. Are you in touch with your neighbors about this?
All the time. Yes, sir.
Okay, they've been notified about the modification request. I didn't realize coral grew out of its natural habitat. How quick does it grow?
It takes about 6 months for one polyp to multiply into like about 4 or 5 times.
What's
So
a polyp?
one polyp is one cell. Imagine a human cell. You got a female and male, right? You join into one cell. That cell turns into 2 to 4. The coral grows the same pattern. From one cell it becomes 2. We call it polyp because it's similar to a flower. So that flower multiplies into 2, and then just to 3, into 4, into 5, and it creates a colony. And what we do is we cut those polyps and we glue them to a ceramic tile, and then from there it takes off. We also supply a lot of pet stores with large colonies of coral too. So they do their own grafting and their own cutting and stuff like that.
How big is your inventory at any given time? What's the largest it would be?
Wow. I could have up to $40,000 in coral at one point.
That sounds great for a business point of view, but to your neighbor's point of view, what would that be? And what's a colony? How many? How many pieces of coral makes a colony?
Depending on one colony is a group of polyp, meaning that they multiply and they create a skeleton out of stone, and they all live within that skeleton. Now there are many different varieties and many species of coral. There are coral that looks like a flower. There are coral that look like a plant. There are corals that look just like a mushroom. There's so many different varieties, and I import most of them.
Is this still fits in your garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, President Jordan.
Yes. Well, I'm very happy to speak on behalf of Mr. Ramos in favor of the granting of this modification. As the council is well aware, he has had this permit for many, many years already, never had any problems, no concerns or questions or complaints from any neighbors about it. And quite frankly, the de minimis amount of the modification that he's asking for here to go from 0 per month visitors to 5 per month, he may not even have 5, but he's just trying to say that, he wanted to step forward and be honest and ask for a legitimate modification, that he does potentially have some people that may want to stop in, see what he has for inventory, and therefore wanted to come forward and do it the right way and actually seek an amendment to his special permit from the city council. So I commend him for his honesty. He's a very humble guy. He actually has a great business. He does, if you look on Facebook and otherwise, some of these things are extremely beautiful. It's tremendous. He's an extremely talented man. So anyways, I would strongly support, the granting of this modification and wish him the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Give me such a thing.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ramos, just so I'm clear, it's, the product is in your garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I have my office in my room in my apartment, which is where I got my fax and my phone and all my office equipment.
Beautiful. And so, is this basically your job?
I also drive trucks. This is my boss right there, my lady. She's my dispatcher, so I work for her part-time.
Hi, boss. Okay, so thank you for coming here. And just for the record, I mean, Mr. Ramos is current with, the president, the city council president will get asked a question tomorrow night, and he'll read the same thing I'm reading, that he's current with everything. So, fees, taxes, and all the rest of that.
Yes, sir.
And so, taking that all into light, we have any more questions from the committee? Okay, this is a public hearing, so, city departments or staff, speak now, forever hold your peace, okay? Comments for the public in favor of the application. Anybody want to make a comment? Comments from the public in opposition to the application. Anybody want to make a comment? Okay, Mr. Ramos, anything else further you need to say?
No, sir.
Okay, does the board this committee want to ask any more questions while we're still in public session?
A motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
On the motion to close the public hearing, what say you? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is now closed.
A motion to grant the permit with the modification of up to 5 customers per month.
Second.
Okay, so just bear with for half a second so I can, people get emotional when I didn't write these things down exactly the way they should be written down. Where's the order? This is what we're having, I have to use it right here. So, today's the 29th, we know that, Joe. Okay, so Councilor McGivern, your motion is what, grant?
Grant the special permit with the modification of 5 customers per month, up to. And any existing special conditions would remain the same.
And I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, I'll put Sullivan second. Okay, so the motion is to grant a special permit with a modification of up to 5 customers per month and to retain the current conditions, if any. On the motion to grant special permit, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, none? Okay, special permit is recommended at this level, and so we'll forward this to the full city council tomorrow night? No, start Wednesday night. Tomorrow we vote. We're all voting tomorrow, presidential primary, and then Wednesday night, we have, we changed our rules to meet on Wednesday night because tomorrow's the election. So Wednesday night at 7 o'clock-ish, we will take this up, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to making a stronger Holyoke through business.
Okay.
Thank you and good luck.
I'll tell you, let's put that in a campaign brochure. Okay, so, let's see here. Now, we had a little change in plan, so, if we could take out of order, actually, we could go back to regular order. If I could just get a motion to take a number 2, please.
Motion to take up item number 2.
Okay, all in favor, take that off the table. Okay,
Aye.
so moved. If I could get a motion to open up the public hearing. Actually, let me see if I need to even open up the public. I do not. Let me just read this. This is a special permit application to amend an existing special permit to allow removal of associated screening as required for Bell Atlantic Mobile of Mass, also known as Verizon, or for our good buddies, at 485 South Street, et cetera, et cetera. I have before me a letter dated February 25th from their local council. Dear Mr. Bartley, on behalf of Cellco Partnership, formerly known as Bell Atlantic, now known as Verizon, we respectfully request that the City Council approve the withdrawal without prejudice of the Verizon Wireless Special Permit Amendment application filed with the city on December 21, 2015, with respect to the above referenced property. Verizon was able to reconfigure its plans to avoid the removal of the screening as required under the special permit, which was issued September 1st, 2009. So in light of that, it might be prudent if I could get a motion to give leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Motion made second to receive the communication upon the written request by the petitioner to give leave to withdraw without prejudice, that we do that.
Second.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so let's just, okay, so we say goodbye to that one. Okay, okay, let me just write the score on that one, okay. Okay, 2 for 2. Okay, we're a touch early yet for, Scott's Tower, so we have, we have 2 other orders on our agenda. I'd like to take them up as, if the committee would, suspend and then take these up as a package, and we can sort of drag this out for a few minutes, if I could.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, take this up table as a package?
Aye.
Okay, all right, these are, the first is an order filed by Nelson, ordered that the city council pass a resolution titled "The Humanitarian Matter of Oscar Lopez Rivera." The second is ordered filed by Rebecca Lisi, that the city council consider adopting the final resolution in opposition to the Federal Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Okay, so, not seeing Councilor Lisi here, and having received no communication from Councilor Lisi on this, what would the body's pleasure be at this point? Would you like to discuss this? Would you like to leave it on the table? Would you like to give a leave to withdraw? Would you like to approve it? What would you like to do? Councilor Sullivan,
Well, I'd like to discuss it and vote on it.
fire away.
We're talking just about number 6, or?
We're only talking about 5 and 6 are on the table before us, but you can discuss,
Well,
I prefer to discuss number 6 right now.
okay, well, what I'm going to say about number 6, so I don't have to repeat it all over again for number 5, it's exactly the same thing. Myself, I don't feel it's the place of the Holyoke City Council to be adopting resolutions or involving ourselves in federal deals or international humanitarian causes. It's very much out of our realm of influence. Anything we can say, if the population of the entire island of Puerto hasn't done anything about it, or if the almighty AFL-CIO hasn't done anything about it, there's very little we're going to do to address it. And it's just, these type of things, I don't feel should be coming before the city council. And that's where I stand on it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Sullivan, appreciate that. Councilor Roman?
Mr. Chairman, with regards to item number 5, I'd like to make a motion to lay this item on the table until a future date set by the chair.
Okay, well, we're, now, just under discussion, since I don't have a second for that, just under discussion, because, and we talked about this, Nelson, and I said to you I would do this, and I did. We're gonna have, just so the public knows, what we have to have, this body has to meet on March 7th, relative to CDBG, if you recall, so I wanna make sure that's on your calendars. We'll also need to meet April 2nd, relative to another special permit for bed and breakfast. At that same meeting, we'll also bring up this order as well, Nelson. Is that your understanding? Yes. Okay, all right, so.
I'll second that.
Okay, so, and then just so you know, we're gonna meet as well, April 20th. That's hopefully that'll be our last one till September, with any good luck. And April 20th, we'll have before us Rich Massey from Mass DOT. That was an order I filed last month relative, and he was here, Joe remembers, but for the 3 new counselors, he was here with Al Stegman 2 years ago and gave a really good address as to all the things that Mass DOT is doing throughout the city of Holyoke, all the projects that are happening. And it was a good chance to ask questions of him, especially regarding
Bridges?
yeah, Joe, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Bridges at the first level canal by Open Square and Mr. Kern's warehouse as well. I mean, I've got numerous other pet little projects I have. He's also going to talk about something that he mentioned 2 years ago, which is reworking Route 5 south from the Peddler down into West Side as well. So that's when he was here 2 years ago, he gave us a heads up on all the repaving they were doing in Smith's Ferry on Ward 7 from the East Hampton line to Mountain Park. So that was pretty helpful. So I'm glad I could get that out there. Then on Councilor Lisi's order, what's the pleasure of the committee at this point? Would Councilor Tallman?
I just make a statement, my feelings, and I know she probably knows this is on the agenda since we all get these, but usually if somebody's not here, we can table
Sure.
it. You know, that's my thought, to table it, to have for discussion at another date.
Well,
And let her know, I mean, at least table one more time, give her a chance to.
why don't we, if the committee makes, if that's a,
Just before is a second, Mr. Chairman?
yeah, sure, Councilman McGivern.
I have no problem with tabling it. Probably the correct thing to do for at least, well, 1, because of the request of the maker of the order, and 2, because the counselor's not here. I take I tend to agree with what Counselor Sullivan says. I do take them one at a time, because every now and then one comes along that really calls for a vote by the city council, but I think most of them are difficult to vote because our constituents are mixed on their feelings towards resolutions like this. But as far as tabling, if we put them on for the same meeting as the block grants, is that the plan?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay,
No, Counselor.
that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, block grants are just going to be, that's the sole item on that agenda on March
Okay.
7th is CDBG. And while I'm at it, I really want to recognize Counselor Sullivan for not only going to bat for us at the Citizens Advisory Committee, but all the homework that Counselor Sullivan put in and all the prep work that he put in relative to, so he represented us at those hearings, and then he also put a tremendous amount of time in. So thank you, Counselor Sullivan, for that, and we look forward to your input on March 7th.
Thank you.
So with that, we are in a, I guess I'm of the same opinion that we probably should table these to, and we'll put them on the agenda, we're both on the agenda for April 2nd. So the makers are forewarned on all that. So on April 2nd, we'll hear from Councilor Roman, because you're on the committee, and then we'll either hear from Councilor Lisi or not on the other issue. So any other councilors want to speak on this? Okay.
Second the motion.
Okay, that is not debatable. On the motion to table, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are tabled. Okay, I'm looking at the clock.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one more item before, see, we got 5 minutes.
Yes, we have 5 minutes, yes.
Item number 1?
One previous meeting.
I didn't get minutes.
I think they were they were emailed.
Were they emailed?
I think they were.
Okay.
I read them, but I don't want to be the only one.
I have to be honest, I missed it.
Can we maybe receive and lay on the table?
Okay. Okay, so, a motion to receive is on the table. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so they are received, pending. So we'll just say pending to 3/7. So Ryan, Allen, if you would just put our last meeting minutes on the March 7th agenda along with this one, that would be great, and we'll dispose of those then. So we have about 5 minutes right now, just so the public's watching at home. We have before us a special permit, which we're not going to take up until, because it was advertised for 6:30. So we really can't take it up till 6:30. So why don't we take a 5-minute recess, okay? Okay, we're a recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
efficiency. You're so good, I'm gonna take a recess.
That's why we're the new ordinance committee, Mike.
That is incredible.
Just getting the people's business done.
How are you? Too fast. Can't even possibly.
That was good. Keep it flowing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like ching, 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 like a machine.
No, we're trying to ordinance, too much.
What's that ordinance?
Yeah, we got too many things going on. But that should be it until September. That's just so you know. Once we get through the April meetings, we'll see each other again in September. I feel this.
With DGNR all the way till September.
No DGNR from April.
I don't know, Mr. President, that's quite a promise.
That's my plan.
That gives me more time to find that folder for charter and rules.
I know, we're gonna have to have about 6 charter and rules meetings just to make.
Frank says he's gone back a year, he's found 9.
Okay, we're back, and we're back to regular business here. If I could get a motion to reopen the public hearing for number 4, that would be great.
Motion to reopen the public hearing for item number 4.
Second.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing back open for agenda item number 4, petition of CC AT&T site manager for special permit for modification of existing wireless telecom facility on Scott Tower Road. And so the applicant was before us. We had a lot of great questions, and we had some follow-up from applicants. So we have, I know before us we have Timothy Twardsky of, Councilor Twardsky, your firm is Robinson & Cole, and you're out of where?
I'm from the Boston office of
Okay,
Robinson.
great, okay. So Attorney Twardsky's with us to follow up from questions we had previously relative to his client's proposal. So, Counselor, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Council President Jordan.
Hold on. Everybody? Those will be for everybody. It's not yours.
Okay.
Counselor, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. Since the last meeting, I've filed 2 supplemental sets of materials. If it pleases the board, I'd like to go through them in order, just to give a quick overview of the content and the materials, entertain any questions that the board members may have. The first item is a letter, a submittal dated February 22nd. And this really is a submittal in response to much of the discussion that took place on the 1st of February, and it really contains 2 items. The first is a supplemental set of photo sims, and in those photo sims, what we've done at the request of the committee is show the proposed tower using 2 different color schemes. You recall the original submission showed essentially a galvanized steel gray tower with antennas that appeared light gray in color, almost a white color. The request from the board was that we show the tower plus the antennas in the same gray color as the original tower.
Okay,
So
so-
we've done that.
Okay, so let's just get in order here, because
Sure.
I have in front of me a letter dated February 26, 2016. Is this the letter to which you just referred?
No, I'm referring to first the February 22nd letter, which we submitted a week ago today.
Okay, do I have a copy of that letter? Do I have a copy of that letter? February 22nd letter. I don't, what, doesn't mean it's not here. Okay, so the February 26th letter is something you're gonna get to in a minute?
Yes. Yes, if it pleases the board, I'll just do it in chronological order,
Okay, so.
or I can go
So
whatever
the
you
February
order.
22nd letter,
One extra copy of February, yeah, one extra copy of February 22nd,
I believe I do.
just so we can receive it.
just going back through my emails to see if I've.
If I may approach the board?
Yes,
Please, yeah. Not a quarter lot.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's February 22nd letter. Oh, look at this. President Jordan's gonna like this. Okay, so, all right, sorry about that, but we just didn't have, I don't have your February 22nd letter. Okay, so
Just
how-
out of curiosity, did any of the board members receive the 22nd letter?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay. I emailed it to just about everybody in City Hall and delivered 10 paper copies to the city clerk and spoke with Mr. Ryan Allen afterward, and my understanding was that they would be distributed in paper copy as well as email. So I
City
do
clerk
apologize.
probably, the city clerk probably put it on our agenda for tomorrow night. That's, it's okay,
Yeah,
that's just.
yeah, we'll manage. Okay, so,
I got it by email also.
Okay, right. Okay, thank
okay,
you.
I don't seem to have it, but that's okay. Maybe my mistake. Okay, if you guys,
CC does not include any of the members of this committee. It is sent to Mr. Allen as
Right, and in conjunction with my email to Mr. Allen, I had a follow-up phone call with him and asked whether or not I asked him to forward it to distribute to the members of the committee, which he acknowledged that he would do so. So I do
Okay.
apologize that you did not receive that. I have a second
Sure.
spare copy, if that's helpful.
Sure. If I have it forwarded on an email, that'd be easy for me. I can read it on my phone.
Okay, I'm doing it right now. I'll send it all.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we can tell the listeners and TV watchers at home, we're not texting people when we look at our iPhones, we're reading
Oh, we never do
information for
that.
this evening, okay?
No, never.
Just on the record.
I couldn't even imagine anybody doing that. That would violate open meeting law, and I don't want to do that ever. Okay, so Counselor Jordan, President Jordan is going to email. Okay, let's see if I can. Oh, it's exciting. I'm watching it. Nothing come through yet.
8 megabytes, a lot of pictures in what Tim sent us.
Okay, 8 megabytes. Look at that. Well, not here yet. Okay, just in the interest of time, so we'll wait for that to come through. So, Mr. Twardsky, why don't you sort of take it from the top, if you would, since I've got the February 22nd in front of me in hard copy. So,
Okay. Okay, thank you. So what I'll do is I'll take it's actually the attachment labeled photo sims first, since this is one of the requests that we received from the board. And essentially, this is a replication of the original set of photo sims that we submitted to the board in December with different color schemes applied. You know, one of the questions was, what color scheme is most effective at essentially, you know, minimizing the visibility of the tower? And the two colors that we've included in the supplemental photo sims, one is a solid gray color, which essentially is the same color as the tower that we showed in the original set of photo sims, but we've colored the antennas and the frames to match that gray color, so it's more of a uniform gray color. The second color that we included in the photo sims at the request of Council President Jordan is a sky blue color. And that sky blue color was applied to the tower as it, to the extent that it rises above the tree canopy, as well as to the frames and the antennas. And I think through the different photographs, you'll see some different backgrounds, including a partly cloudy, partly sunny, to give you some different perspective in terms of you know, how the different colors look depending on sky conditions and different viewpoints. So I'll defer to the board and give you an opportunity until they take a look through those photographs, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
just so I'm aware, the original proposed color was what?
The original proposal was the unpainted galvanized steel gray monopole. The antennas themselves, they're not white, but in contrast, they're a much lighter gray color. So in the photo sims, they appeared much lighter, almost a white color, which some of the commentary was that the lighter color stood out more. So we colored those to match the darker gray of the tower itself. And that's the difference in terms of the original versus the second set of photo sims in the gray color.
Okay, and while we're on color screens, President Jordan, do you want to make a comment on your preference at this point?
After giving it a lot of thought, and recognizing that, and speaking to Tim, recognizing that they also put in a lot more of these than I certainly evaluate, although we've done quite a number of these in Holyoke, I'm going to go with keeping it with the gray, and as originally proposed, on the basis that the light blue does look best in a clear day, but whereas most of the time the sky is overcast most frequently, and the State Highway Department uses the grays for their light poles and all of that, I think it's probably overall best to go with the gray at this point.
What about your feelings on the, on red with Jordan and white? Okay.
And I also ruled out fluorescent orange, so
Okay.
those were the two that.
All right, so that was question mark number one. So we're back to the original gray galvanized steel monopole.
Yes,
Did I say that right, Counselor?
you did.
Okay. All right, so, next.
Okay, the second part of the February 22nd submittal is a letter in which I've addressed in a little greater detail some of the discussion that we had on the first about the public benefits of the proposed replacement monopole. Some of the questions that came out on the 1st of February had to do with the financial benefits in terms of how this would create a potential for additional revenue to the city. As we discussed during the February 1st hearing, there is a revenue share between the tower manager, the lessee, and the lessor, in this case the city, for what's referred to as secondary lessee revenue. Essentially, these are the carriers who locate their equipment on the tower other than AT&T, which is part of the lessee lease. Currently, there are two carriers, T-Mobile and Sprint. So the questions were essentially twofold. Number one, if there are additional carriers that locate on the tower, would that create additional revenue for both for my client as well as for the city? And the answer is yes. We don't have at this time a fourth or a fifth or a third or fourth carrier asking to locate on the tower, but as it stands now with the existing tower, it's at its structural capacity. So if we had additional carriers who wanted to locate on the tower, they couldn't do it simply because there's not enough structural capacity. This changes the equation and does open the door for additional carriers, plus what I'll touch upon in a moment is the public safety equipment for the city of Holyoke. So there is the potential for additional revenue from new carriers. The other question was additional revenue from existing carriers. As we talked about at the last meeting, generally speaking, all of the carriers on the tower now have 3 antenna arrays. What the proposal would do is allow the existing carriers to increase the number of antennas that they have on this site. This is it's important to the carriers in that, through FCC auctions, they've added additional frequency bands that are used both for voice and data, data-heavy transmissions. That's really been the direction that the industry has gone in recent years, and they're really constrained by the 3 antenna limitation, as well as the structural limitations of the tower from upgrading that equipment. This would allow them to do that. And the additional revenue, we got information from Crown Castle, and that is depicted in the letter. Essentially, is with each antenna, there is an increase in the rental fee that the existing carriers have to pay. The hypothetical I outlined in the letter is for an existing carrier that has 3 antennas currently on the tower. If they were to increase that to 12 antennas, so if they go from 3 to 12, the additional revenue for that carrier would be approximately $8,100 per year, of which the city would receive 50%. And that's for a single carrier. So if both carriers were to increase the number of antennas, then again, that's an additional increase. So, if both carriers, for instance, went from 3 to 12, then the city would stand to gain additional revenue of $8,100 annually just from that change in the number of antennas for existing carriers.
They'll almost pay for a city councilor. Just about. Okay.
Right.
All right. President Jordan, comments?
Yes, Tim, I think we should also touch on the topic of width. I believe we had a conversation this past week when one of the things that we learned is that the tower is moving back. That was in the original proposal, so no new news there. It's moving back approximately 43 feet, I believe, from the highway, when I use that reference point as backwards. And basically, the antennas now are mounted directly to the monopole, but under the new framework, we're going to have, originally, I believe we talked on the first of about a 10-foot, 5 feet in each direction of these tripods, for the lack of a better word, that hold the antennas out. And I believe the conversation we had is that you believe that's going to be more about 8 feet in reality. Is that still the case?
Actually, you're on the right track. The numbers are a little different.
Okay.
And this kind of jumps ahead to the February 26th letter, which I'm happy to do.
No, I don't want to jump ahead yet. I was really asking if you had a question relative to what his comments concerning revenue stream. So I just want to keep on that point.
No,
Kevin.
I have no
Okay.
questions on revenue
So you're
stream.
good. Okay.
We're
So-
good on that point.
So, yeah,
Okay,
Go
and
on.
if I could just, wrap up one last issue relative to the February 22nd letter, which I think is an important one, because, when we're talking about the potential public benefits of the replacement tower, I think one of the most important, in my mind, the most important benefit is the potential enhancement of the city's public safety communication system. Currently, the city public safety system does not have any antennas on the tower, and given the structural constraints, it couldn't hold any public safety antennas. With the new tower, what we've done is reserve a spot at 132 feet above ground level for the city to locate public safety antennas. So that, this is an important enhancement from the city's perspective in its ability to communicate through its public safety system, but it's also an improvement from the user end. The FCC released data toward the end of last year that approximately 70% of 911 calls are made from wireless phones as opposed to landlines, and that percentage is growing. So to the extent that the tower also allows the existing and potential future carriers to enhance and improve their communication systems or communications that are provided from this tower, it really is a public safety enhancement from both the city's perspective and also the user end. And I think that's a really important public benefit that needs to be emphasized here, if I could. So if there are no other questions on that subject, then I'll be happy to turn to the February 26th letter.
Councilor Tallman has a question.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks for explaining that to us. So you're saying the existing tower, there's no more space for any carriers to put on there?
That's correct.
No
And
more wireless, so that's, right now.
Correct.
But with the new tower put up there, you got potential for 2 more carriers, plus, as my think, is the biggest part is the safety issue for the city.
That is correct.
So there's a potential of 2 more with revenue possibly coming in from those 2 carriers, half of it going to the city, and then the public safety aspect will be able to put on, you said how many feet? 100
The spot is reserved at 132 feet above ground level on the tower.
above ground level, okay. Thank you.
That's shown on the site plan that were submitted with the application.
Councilor Sullivan?
Looking at the site map here, can you tell me the existing tower, it's hard to make it out on this map, what contour line does that cross? And in relation to that, the new one, what contour line does that cross? What I'm getting at is the new site pad at exactly the same altitude, or is it a lower level or a higher level than the existing one?
Right. I think the best depiction is on sheet number A1, which is kind of the overhead view zoomed in on the compound itself. And you can see the contour line at an elevation of 472 feet. Crosses right in front, just below, as you're looking at the sheet, just below the proposed tower. There is not a second contour line, which would, looks like these are shown at 2-foot intervals. You can also see a 470-foot interval line also below the 472 one. There's not another contour indicating 474, so it looks like it's going to be approximately 472, but certainly less than 474, which would have been depicted on a second or a third contour line, but there's no contour line.
Okay, so they're at a level plane. It's not a change in the geographical altitude of the site.
That's correct.
So,
All set, Counselor?
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, turning towards, just remind me again, so the pole itself is a technological improvement, but as far as aesthetics, because that's what it seems like we were concerned a lot about, but last time, but the height of the pole
Is the same.
is the same.
Correct.
It's still within the same pad site, if you will, in that
Yes.
fenced-in area?
It is.
Okay. So really, the major change is the technology of the pole, if I, just to be in layman's term, is that pretty much where,
I think that's fair to say, yes.
fair to say? Okay. All right, so we're moving past February 22nd, and we're now moving on to February 26th letter?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you, and I hope everyone has a copy of the February 26th letter. And thank you for that. The February 26th letter really came out of a communication that I had with Council President Jordan after we filed the February 22nd letter. One of the comments that he made, which was really a good point, was in looking at the original and actually the second set of photo sims, which are basically, they included all of the same perspectives. You know, one of the questions was, the neighborhood that includes Raymond Ave, Francis Ave, located across the highway to the west or to the east of this site, is really the one that has probably the best view of this tower. And so the question was, you know, could we run an additional set of photo sims to show what the change in this proposal would do for folks in this neighborhood? We were happy that we were able to, through the engineering company, who actually has a member who lives in the city of Holyoke, really made it easy for us to have the work done. So the second set of photo sims, which were submitted on February 26, include photos that were taken from both Raymond Ave and Francis Ave, and they include a couple of different locations on each of those streets. And I think what's important in looking at these is that because the tower has been moved from its current location to a new location approximately 43 feet to the west, away from these neighborhoods, even though it's actually the same height, when viewed from the perspective of these streets, it's actually going to look smaller. And that's because of the topography. The neighborhoods sit down below the height or the elevation, the ground elevation for this particular site. So as you move further away, it kind of shrinks on the horizon. So in that respect, I think that offsets the additional width that is the trade-off with the external antennas that we're proposing to accommodate the new technology. And I think these photo sims bear that out. In connection with that, we had a subsequent discussion with our engineers about the antenna frames and the antennas themselves. I think when we spoke at the last meeting, we had stated that the frames shown in the original plans and sims were approximately 10 feet in width, going across the frame. What we found out in conversation with the engineering company was that those frames were actually larger than 10 feet. They were, in the industry, they're referred to as a 14-foot frame, but they were actually, as you measure on the scale, it's about 12 feet 6 inches from one. If you're measuring the external frame itself, it's about 12 feet 6 inches. So we requested that they prepare an amended set of plans that does include the 10-foot array, 10-foot frames, and reproduce the in the site plans as well as in the new photo sims. The photo sims that you see in the February 26th letter, the sims themselves are dated February 25th, but what you'll see there is scale drawings with 10-foot frames, which I think doesn't sound like a lot, but I think comparing the original to the February 25th photo sims does show a difference. The frames themselves are also a little bit cleaner. They lack some of the rails and structural elements that are present in the original set of photo sims. So again, we've gone to as far as we can go to try and diminish and reduce the visual scale of the frames themselves as well as the antennas, and that is what we've shown and hope we've accurately depicted in the photo sims dated February 25th. Given the short time frame, we were only able to produce the one set of colors, which I think is consistent with what we heard from the board this evening. We weren't able to produce the sky blue and other colors, but I think these give you a good sense of what the before and after effect of this proposal would be from the perspective of both Raymond Ave and Francis Avenue.
Questions for Mr. Twersky? From the committee?
Well, I'm just going to ask one question, Tim, because I wanted, in case somebody asked me that, did I ask this question, I'm going to make sure I ask. The height is obviously important at 184 feet. You are moving it back. I'm sure you've looked at it. Does the pole have to stay at 100? I mean, the old pole was 184 feet for whatever reason. You were allowed that, and that was the dimensions at that point. Do you absolutely still need 184 feet?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, and part of that you know, where things have changed between the original approval and where we are now is we now have, you know, my client now has leases with all these, with the different carriers who are on there now, and those leases specify the height
Okay.
where they're able to locate their equipment. So, you know, we'd be effectively, you know, violating the terms of the lease if we just arbitrarily said, well, you know what, we're just gonna drop the
Right.
towers, in terms of the height. So, you know, we
But as
do-
you know, the smaller it can go, the better, but
Certainly.
but at the same point, you gotta be practical to the fact that the point of this is to have a pole that's, meets your needs too. So, but so the 184 is an absolute, because I'm sure some constituent will ask me, did you ask that question? So I wanted to make sure I asked that question. You really need the 184 feet.
The carriers do, yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. That's it for, I have some, so we're at 10 feet for the width.
Yes, and that's depicted in both the February
these-
26 photo sims as well as
And
the,
these sims are the 10-foot sims.
yes, those are
Okay.
the 10-foot sims, and the revised site plan dated February 23rd also depicts the 10-foot frames.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Committee members, any other questions? Okay, well, we are still in,
And I'm sorry, how many antennas? Just wanted to confirm. You used to have 9. This proposal is how many? If all 4 were occupied?
Well, that really carrier dependent. You know, the frames, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 10-foot frames can still accommodate 4 antennas per frame. It's not ideal from the carrier's perspective. They want to have a little additional separation for a set of 4 antennas. But for, you know, I think generally speaking, the trend more recently has been for 3 antenna arrays. So this would accommodate that, and then if the carriers do want to have a 4th,
So that's 9, so that would be 36 antennas then in this model.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
I think that's right.
Thank you.
And again, that's carrier dependent. We don't control how many antennas the carriers propose to locate on the towers, but, you know, we wanted to show, you know, essentially what the typical arrangement would look like.
Okay. And there's 9 there currently.
Yes.
and 36 is, just so I'm clear, Kevin, and Mr. Timothy, 36 is a maximum, or is that not the maximum?
Well, I think that's the question in terms of when we go to working our way through this public hearing, I'm gonna recommend a condition that caps it at 36, that they'd have to come back if they wanna increase it over 36.
Well, we're working our way to the public hearing now, so, I mean.
Well, that's gonna be my proposal. I'm asking, what do you have in here? 36 antennas, that would be my recommendation, that we put a condition that, you know, to grant, but with a limit of 36 antennas, currently 9, so, and we're gonna put in all these measurements as conditions, so that what we're seeing is what we're getting. So I'm gonna propose all those as conditions to the special permit. So just so we're all on the same page. I'm happy to start articulating all those right now if you want me to go through them.
I don't see why
I
not.
wasn't sure when, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that the width not to exceed 10 feet, that the height is not to exceed 184 feet.
Well, so let's just so width not to exceed 10 feet. Do you have an objection to that?
No.
Okay. So width,
And just for clarification, with meaning the frames,
Correct.
right? Because we
I
should.
mean, the pole's what, 2 feet,
Right.
3 feet wide? Yeah.
and just so I'm clear, so the frames being,
The maximum width of this,
with the frames on them,
with the frames on it,
would be 10 feet.
correct.
Got it, okay.
That's what Tim has
Okay.
articulated to us, so.
All right, and
I
so
just- I
height
want-
is 100.
184 feet. So a pole not to exceed 184 feet tall.
Okay. That's, I'm sure, okay, so check, all right.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I would say
I don't
so.
want him to take it down and then say, well, you know, let's make it 28 feet long, taller, you know? 184 feet, that's a condition.
Yeah, so if, I'm just saying, if it was 182 feet or 188 feet,
You can be lower, you just can't be higher.
I'm just saying, how would we know? I mean, do we
I don't know.
do we measure these somehow?
It could be measured.
I just, okay, so we'll say 184 feet, and we'll,
I'm sure whoever the steelmaker that's building this,
it's not
He's
gonna be,
charging them
not
for
gonna be
184
185 feet,
feet.
or they're in trouble with the city of Holyoke. Okay, move
they
on.
are.
All right.
I think generally speaking, our experience is that the building inspectors are keeping a close watch on this, and they do require, after the tower is installed, typically what we see is a request for an as-built. So we're asked to confirm that,
Yep.
that the tower is
Right.
in conformance with,
These are important conditions.
Okay, 184 feet, okay. Next.
36, the applicant shall not exceed 36 antennas. May have less, but not more than 36.
Comment?
if we're talking total number of antennas, I think the concern there is that.
Exclusive of the public safety one, of course.
Could we make it a maximum of 12 per array? Because at 3 carriers, which we have on there now, if each went to 12, there's your 36. But if we have a fourth carrier who wants to locate on here, they've already reached the maximum of 36. So we foreclose their opportunity to locate on the tower.
Well, no, you would just have to come back and ask our okay.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman McGivern?
Take away, Tim, if there's a new carrier, we like to have a new application, just so we can touch base with the assessors and make sure that everything's up to date as far as the assessments go and as far as what what we see.
Right, and typically the way it works, if we have an additional carrier that comes to us and wants to locate on the tower, we don't come here, they do. So, if carrier number 4 wants to locate on the tower, we work out the arrangements between the tower owner and the carrier, and then the carrier has to come in. If additional zoning relief is required, then it's up to them to come back to the city and obtain whatever relief is required.
Okay. So they'll make an application, presumably with your permission.
Right, yeah, certainly it's.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, while we're on, I just want to clarify the language for the number of antennas. So what's the proper language?
So applicant not to exceed 36 antennas, exclusive of any public safety antenna provided to the city of Holyoke.
Not to exceed 36 private sector.
Or, no, the applicant, I would just say the applicant may have up to 36 antennas exclusive of any antennas granted to the city of Holyoke for public safety access.
If I could comment just quickly, because, they're not our antennas. So I'm not sure the word applicant is really the right terminology. Cause
Carrier?
these, yeah, I think
Well,
that's
the
kind
pole
of
may,
like,
our point here is that the pole
non-public.
doesn't have more than 36 on. What would you suggest then?
I think ideally, I would propose, what I suggested before, a limit of 12 antennas per carrier.
Yeah, that, I've already gone through that, Tim.
Right,
What was the language on 36?
So barring that,
How would you like us to word the condition?
that,
You want us to use the word carrier, applicant? What would you prefer?
existing carriers on the tower not to exceed 12 per carrier.
Okay, or
that
the
covers-
tower may not have more than 36 antennas on it. Is that generic enough, or what would you?
If that's where you're
No,
going, yeah.
what
that
makes you
works.
more comfortable?
Right, a maximum of 36 antennas exclusive of public safety antennas.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Okay, next.
That the city of Holyoke be granted access to have public safety antennas on the tower
Next.
to be located at 132 feet in height, which was the proposal.
Okay, next. Gray galvanized steel,
Correct, gray galvanized steel.
right? Next. There's 5.
That the antenna will be located as identified in the plot plan, so that moves the location the 43 feet in.
Okay,
That's it.
all right, so I've got six special conditions proposed by the city council president. Width not to exceed 10 feet, height not to exceed 184 feet, antennas not to exceed 36, exclusive of public safety antennas. The public safety antenna to be on the tower at the 132-foot mark. The antenna will be consists of gray galvanized steel, and the antenna to be located, as described in the plot plan, to wit, with 43 feet west of the existing monopole. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so those are the special conditions proposed, but Councilor McGivern.
Tim, on the original permit, or suggest if there's a way that we have done this, is there a bond if the tower has to come down, or a guarantee that the tower will be taken down by Verizon, or?
I don't recall specifically if there's a bond provision. I know in the lease that we have with the city, there is a provision that specifically addresses that if the tower is no longer in active use, that it has to be taken down and the property has to be restored to its original condition. I don't recall. Do you recall if there's a bond? I don't.
And we're not modifying the lease tonight, so that language will remain.
Right, that's correct.
Thank you.
Could, Mr. Chairman? Just as a follow-up to Councilor McGivern's question, which is a very good one, should we put in a condition related to inactivity? That is, if the pole is no longer being used for a period of, say, 2 years, that the pole has to be removed?
I believe that's actually in the lease. During the break, I'll be happy to take a quick look at it and confirm, but
Because we wouldn't want just a dead pole sitting up there forever. We would like to put some duty on you, the pole owner, if you decide you didn't want to use it anymore, that there's some affirmative duty on the owner of the pole to remove it.
Right.
And if you could give us, whatever that time period is, we probably would like to reflect that as a condition.
Any more questions from the committee at this time? Because you get Councilor Tallman.
Just got a quick one. Tim, thanks for explaining things, and I know we're run through quite a few things. I appreciate you bringing in the new photos and the letters and explaining. I think you went above and beyond getting us the information we want, for this special permit. But my question, and Councilor Jordan brought it up about the antennas. If somebody comes in and they're going to talk to you, so does that mean the scenario is they're going to come through the council to get another 12 antennas? Is that how it works? Is that going to be difficult to lease those out? I'm concerned about the money that the city could possibly be losing if somebody says, well, we got to go through this whole process with the city. I'm concerned that, you may not be able to rent out at least that spot.
Right. I mean, I can have Ray from Crown Castle add to this if you'd like to, but generally speaking, that's the way the business works, is that the leases between the tower owners and the carriers themselves usually includes a clause that basically says that the carrier is responsible for obtaining any and all governmental approvals necessary for them to locate on the tower, and so the burden is on them to do that. So just because they have a lease with my client doesn't give them the right to just go ahead and start putting up antennas. They need to do the work. They'll come in, if they want to apply for a building permit, the building inspector will probably say, no, look, you've got this condition of approval. You have to go to the city council to modify the special permit. But the lease is a separate issue, doesn't in any way relieve them of the burden to obtain any governmental approvals that are required for them to locate on the tower.
Okay. I just wanted to run that through to see how that all, is played out, because it just seemed like, it's a condition that, may be tough to handle. Am I right? Or, it's something you don't want to, you understand it,
Well,
though.
sure. I mean, from the carrier's perspective, obviously, they want to jump through as few hoops as necessary. But is that, in my opinion, an unusual burden?
No.
No, it's typical.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, from the committee, no. Okay, so, city departments or staff want to make a comment? I guess not. Comments from the public in favor of the application. Would anybody like to speak? Okay, comments from the public in opposition to the application. Would anybody like to speak?
Yes, my name is David Weiss. I'm a third-generation Hoyoker. I went to public schools that no longer exist.
What's your address, Dave?
Sorry?
What, your address, please?
I am no longer a Hoyoke resident, sold the house in 2012.
What's your address?
I live at 12 Parkman Street in Brookline, but let's use my business address
Whatever, okay.
because that's the reason I'm here, is the owner of the abutting property. So the business address is 18 New Broadway in Westfield.
All right. Okay, Mr. Weiss, go ahead.
So my my grandfather acquired a whole lot of properties in Holyoke, quite a lot of properties in Holyoke, and in 1932 he established a corporation, Oak Realty. The owner of the abutting property is one of the properties that was about a 13-acre lot. Its remainder is 3 acres, but with the taking of 91 is when this was reduced to a landlocked 3-acre lot. And I only learned of this proposal recently, so I'm sorry that I'm not as up to date on all the details, and I haven't seen these other letters that were discussed. But the reason that I'm here is that first off, I guess the little bit of background is that when the tower was first proposed, my uncle, Bill Epstein, was managing these properties at that time, and I know that he took up a dispute with the city over why, when he had private property that was a suitable site for this cell tower, was the city basically competing with him and leasing out public property, public park property, for a private commercial use when he had a suitable site next door. Well, that's obviously gone by. But the area, the fall zone, I guess we call this radius, 209-foot radius, is going to be increased. The part of my property that is affected by that will be increased by moving this. So right now, more of it is in the 91 buffer, and more of that will be moved, covering area of my lot. So I'm in opposition until there can be some mitigation. I'm not ultimately intending to stop this, but I'm saying that I am adversely affected. And for the people who say, well, these towers don't fall down or something like that, I'm old enough to remember in the 1970s, a man named Samuel Lovejoy, as an act of sabotage, took down a weather tower up in Montague. It was the initial, I guess you could say, it was the first shot in the anti-nuclear power struggle in Massachusetts. So, yes, I can be affected by this. My property can be affected by this, and I'm saying I'm a private owner. This is a public agency, public board that is hearing this. I am adversely affected by this, and I seek some compensation or mitigation, something that will allow me to recover what the potential loss is out of this. And I understand that right now it is only a woodlot, but I have a couple of ideas. One of the ideas I've already discussed with 3 city officials, all of whom had essentially the same response, which is that it would require a variance, but they didn't see any reason why I could not have a reasonable prospect of proceeding. So, woodlot now, I understand that, but a possibility of something more, and this increase of this fall zone does adversely affect me. I'll be happy to take any questions, but I've only recently learned about this. I would have started earlier if I knew about it earlier.
I understand. Well, I'm going to, I guess I would have a question, but any committee members want to ask a question? Mr. Weiss? Councilor McGivern?
Mr. Weiss, are you the sole owner of the property?
I am now. On December of 2010, I acquired all the outstanding shares from all the other family members.
And could you, in a little bit more detail, explain why you would be adversely affected?
Yes, because if I got to do, it's not a subject for this hearing, it would mostly be in zoning, but it might come before this board. I haven't done the research on it yet. But if I got to proceed with the idea that I've had, when again, it's been favorably, the response I've received from the 3 city officials that I discussed this with was all favorable. And it would lead to income that when I first discussed this with the city officials, would be shared with the city. So this would ultimately be an income generating for both myself and for the city. But it would be a structure that would be in this zone, or potentially in this zone. I don't know that it would be, but I don't know that it wouldn't be the optimal location for it.
And are you familiar with the Telecommunications Act?
I'm aware of it, but I haven't read it.
Okay. I've yet to hear anything that would allow us not to grant the permit, and that's why I'm asking.
I will research that, but I am not currently aware of that. And it's not, again, the permit that exists, I obviously have no opportunity to oppose that permit. But this is going to increase. Right now, the fall zone, or whatever we want to call that, the 200-foot 9 radius, covers about 1/3 of an acre inside my property. It's not an insignificant amount. And it's going to be increased, and that's what this proposal is to increase the area of my property that will be affected by this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I think I hear your concern, Mr. Weiss. So it's within the rules of public hearing that the applicant has a chance to respond or rebut to that concern, if the applicant so chooses. So, Mr. Corsi, do you want to comment if I could sum it, I believe there's a concern that he's in a butter, and that there's a, if something happens at a pole, the pole itself would fall within his property, and it could potentially damage some of his property. Do I understand that right, Mr. Weiss?
Yes, and I would also add, I brought up the sabotage, but I would also add that we had a tornado just a few years ago.
So an act of God, sabotage, but it's some way, somehow, the pole could fall and land in his property. Mr. Horsky, you want to address that, please?
That's the only standing that I think I have here.
You're a member of the public, you're a property owner, you have standing.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying I don't know of any other reason that I would have cause to object, but that's where I'm affected, and that's why I'm coming to the board.
It's reasonable, don't second guess yourself, Mr. Horsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Weiss prior to the hearing. He introduced himself out in the hallway, and we had a brief conversation. First issue with respect to the fall zone, he mentioned the Lovejoy? Sam Lovejoy Tower. As I understand from our conversation, I'm not familiar with it, so I'm going by what he told me previously was, this was an older tower with guy wires, et cetera, that essentially was sabotaged. It is not the same type of a tower that we have here. There are no guy wires involved. This is a monopole, completely different type and instruction type. Also, as part of the original submittal that we filed with the city in connection with the application, we were required and did submit a certification from the tower manufacturer. The manufacturer is named Engineers Endeavor, and we submitted a letter from them dated December 9th, 2015. And I think we touched upon this briefly at the original hearing, that essentially the way these monopole-style towers are designed and built, in the event of whether it's a cyclone, hurricane, or that type of a natural event, the tower themselves are designed to buckle as opposed to so basically, buckle this way at some point on the tower itself, as opposed to toppling over like a domino. So the type of scenario that he's describing here, I think what you'll see in the letter from Engineered Endeavors is that it's never happened on any tower that they've ever built anywhere in the United States. So we're not concerned about that. Second point, with regard to the fall zone. We drew the fall zone. It's shown on the site plan, and that's a requirement of the wireless ordinance. It's essentially the height of the tower plus 25 feet. So it doesn't reflect the height of the tower itself. It's 25 feet on top of that, and that even assumes that it toppled like a domino, which, as I've addressed, is not going to happen here. Our objective when we put together the plans for this site, when we initially looked at it from an engineering perspective, there was a different site within the existing compound that was originally shown in the plans, and that would have moved the tower closer to this property line. We had conversations with the engineers, and we explained, you know, look, we've got a 130-foot setback requirement from the original proposal. We need to stay with that. And so we looked at moving the tower to where it is now. So the tower distance in terms of the setback from Mr. Weiss's property line to the tower is exactly the same in this proposal as the tower that stands there now and has stood there since 2002. So in that respect, you know, from that setback perspective, nothing's changed.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, do we have a list of the current conditions that exist on the tower? Because I also want to make sure that we don't accidentally, by their absence, delete any other pre-existing conditions, such as the 130-something foot setback that Tim mentioned earlier.
I do not.
I think it's important that we either put in language that says we maintain all the current setback conditions and such, or just some language at the end that says plus all pre-existing conditions.
We will. Councilor McGivern's usually really on top of that, but.
Okay.
But that's a good point.
Tim looks like he's referencing something there.
If I could address Council President Jordan's question. In the original submittal dated December 10th, we did include copies of the 2002 special permit.
Okay.
And that is located at tab C of the December 10th submittal. We also included a copy of the Board of Appeals decision number 858, and that is the setback decision.
Okay.
That is located at tab, it's Exhibit I of the December 10th submittal. So both of those decisions are shown in full in the application.
Is there anything in there that conflicts with the new conditions that we're going to put on?
Be happy to take a quick look at it.
Yeah, if you would. Just because I don't want to have conflicting language, but if it's expansive language, that's fine. It means it's adding on to pre-existing language. I hate to be so legalese, but that is what us lawyers do. But I just want to make sure that we have no conflicts in the conditions and that we add on any of those referenced ones.
Ms. Weiss, go ahead.
I would just like to address something that a very smart attorney just brought up. He said that by moving the tower due west parallel to the property line, it's not moving closer to the property line, but because some of the arc currently is over the 91 buffer area, moving it further west is going to bring the affected arc more over my property. So he is correct that they're not moving it closer to my property line, but the fall zone that is over my land is going to be increased by moving this further west. I just wanted to clarify that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to address Council President Jordan's questions, just in a quick perusal of the conditions of approval on the original special permit, I don't see anything in here that directly contradicts.
Okay.
The one issue that I do want to bring to attention is that the original special permit was for a flagpole style communications tower, which is obviously different than what we're proposing
Right.
here.
And let's just make sure we label that correctly in the new one. Well, how are we describing, this is called monopole?
Right, monopole.
So we'll make
with
sure we
external
label that
antennas.
correctly, yep.
Yeah, as opposed to flagpole style is generally the industry
Okay.
reference for the original.
That's fine, yep.
So
So all, incorporate by reference all prior conditions, except that the new pole will be a monopole and not a flagpole style.
okay.
I could ask a quick question,
Councilman
Mr. Chairman. Tim, is the 130-foot buffer from the location of the pole itself or the site pad?
The pole itself.
Thanks.
And if I could just, one other discovery as we were talking here, I'm looking at the lease, and there is a removal and restoration provision in the lease itself between the carrier and the city, which essentially requires that, let's see. Within 120 days of termination of the agreement, tenant will remove all improvements, footings, foundations, concrete to a depth below 1 foot below grade. So, yes, there is a provision that requires us to return it.
Within 120 days after you cease using it?
Within 120 days after termination of the agreement, the way it's worded. And
So how would you recommend we word this? If we put in a provision on removal, would you say 6 months?
6
I
months.
mean, we want to be reasonable.
Yeah, I think 6 months is fair.
Okay.
I'm just continuing to look through the lease to see if there's another
Okay.
provision that also addresses that, but,
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, I would propose a condition that if the owner of the pole ceases to use it as a telecommunication cell tower for a period of 6 months, ceases to use it, that within 6 months after it ends using it, that it be removed within 6 months.
All right, what about the existing pole? Do we, there's,
I believe the existing pole is
covered
going
by
to be
lease.
removed. That's what they're stating, right?
well, no, I realize that, but it's the existing pole be removed, and then are there any conditions that we need to
Put on that.
apply to the removal?
Just remove the existing pole, right?
right, so, and just to explain the way it works is.
Prior to putting up the new pole, right? Or are you gonna have them, they're gonna be simultaneous for some period, right? Like, so you don't have a disruption of service?
Right, for a short period of time, the existing tower would continue to stand while the new tower is under construction, and then the carriers are able to locate their equipment on the new tower, and then essentially, once the new tower goes online, once the carriers hit the switch, then we decommission the existing tower. What's a general time frame on that, Ray? About 6 months.
Okay, so, the existing pole shall be removed within 6 months after the installation of the new pole. Is that,
I think yeah, typically we prefer to tie it to what we refer to as the on-air date, or, once,
Okay.
because the tower will be completed, and then, we need to allow time for the carriers to locate. They need to coordinate, because they can't be climbing over each other to do the work. So, once the 3 carriers are on the tower, I think
how long do you, okay, then how about this? How long after it goes on air do you need can you take the other one down?
I mean, yeah, the actual decommissioning process doesn't take the full 6 months. It's really a question of being able to coordinate to get the equipment out there, to allow time for, delays, weather-related, et cetera. But, I mean, it's, when we've run into these types of projects, we refer to as a drop as
Well,
well.
I guess a
But
condition could be that you coordinate the dates with the building commissioner. I mean, that's reasonable, right? You would do that anyhow, correct? Okay, so,
So the second pole will be removed, the first pole will be removed within 6 months of go live on the first pole, the new pole.
I think they said on-air date, so.
Okay, that's
but
fine,
I mean,
on air date, yep.
But those are squishy deadlines. I mean, they're gonna be in tune with the building commissioner all the way through this, correct? So,
Yes.
Right, I just hope, yeah.
I mean, I don't know when they're gonna go on air. They don't know when they're gonna go on air. I mean,
Right, it's just whenever it does, that they have to remove the other pole within 6 months.
so they need to notify the building would you notify the building commissioner when you're on air?
Yes. Yes.
Would you typically do that?
Yes, and, I mean, we're communicating with the carriers early on in the process. I mean, we're already in that process now, so they understand what's going through here now. So they're preparing to, in the event that we do get the approval, to go ahead and make the switch, to start populating the new tower.
So just to make it clear, we'll just say in here that that you will communicate the exact date with the building commissioner of when you're on air, so that we know when the clock starts ticking, and you'll do that in writing, okay?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
as soon as possible, yeah, remove the first one, yeah.
I don't know who in the world's gonna be able to read my handwriting, but
Hopefully you.
I wouldn't bank on it, Joe.
Of course, Mr. President, if there's a demolition delay request by the Historic Commission, well, all our bets are off.
That's,
I doubt this will be historic,
potential, I suppose,
but one never knows.
but I doubt it. Okay, we've heard, we got, some 9 conditions on here. But that's for, after we close the public hearing, and we're almost there yet. Mr. Weiss, any more comments?
It's just to formally put it as a request that the board delay a proceeding with the granting of a permit to give me a chance to resolve this mitigation, and I will proceed to resolve it as quickly as I can with the company.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss.
Thank you.
Comments from the board, the committee? Okay, I think we've kind of gone through the process here. I'll take a motion.
Second.
On discussion? Hearing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. On this matter. We have a motion to grant we have before us an application to grant, so I have no motion before me, but would somebody like to make a motion? Or for anybody like to discuss anything?
I'll give it a shot. Motion to grant the application with the special conditions as noted.
Second.
Okay, there were some 9 special conditions, which I'm not going to recap them, unless you want me to recap them. Okay. We have a motion to grant the special permit with 9 conditions. Under discussion, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I'm just going to say very briefly, I'm going to vote in favor of the granting of this new pole and the permit with the conditions. Again, this is for the greater good. If I had it in my world and we could wave a magic wand, there would not be this pole there. Okay. However, the greater good is because it's still something that it's not nice to the screen, the over horizon of the city, but these things are necessities to our daily life. 2, the city is receiving significant financial benefit that for the greater good is helping the community. These revenues are going into the community field trust fund, which is being spent for programs to help the kids of the city of Holyoke in these, whether it's at the Scotts Tower area as well as the community field area. And we have big plans for improvements at Scotts Tower area. And this is going to be of tremendous benefit to the children of Holyoke. And therefore, these dollars are going for that purpose. And so they're dollars that we otherwise would not have for programming. I'm happy to say we have about $84,000 in that fund currently. And it's benefiting the city to the tune of almost $3,000 a month. That is going into this fund for the benefit of children's programs and equipment and otherwise. And with this changes in this tower is going to potentially afford the city even more money. So that when we look at it in the overall, these things are on balance. It's for the greater good of Holyoke that we approve this, and that's why I'm in support of it. Obviously, I'm sure if neighbors and otherwise could turn back the clock to 2002, whether or not we would have this or not, we all put up with cell towers all the way around the community. They're not the prettiest things, not just this one in particular, but overall not the prettiest things to look at, but they are reaping some really good benefits for programs for the city, but also people expect and want good cell service in the community too. That's an important utility. So in that regard, I'm in favor of granting the permit.
Councilman McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't repeat everything that the council president said and the good Ward 6 councilors said, but the positives certainly outweigh any negatives of the project. And as a reminder, the federal government doesn't give us, the local municipality, much leeway in terms of how we can not grant this type of needed development, the type of needed development that so many people who carry these things around is necessary for all communities. I did want to address Mr. Weiss's request very quickly with due respect. I think he came here and laid everything out on the table. His mitigation with the petitioner is between him and the petitioner, not the city. The petitioner, I believe, has met all the standards that they are required to and more. And I think the conditions are in addition to what some of the required standards are in terms of the petition. And I think it's the second public hearing, we have given it our due diligence, and I think it's ready to go. But I did want to note Mr. Weiss's request is certainly one of understandability, but something that we cannot get involved in my humble opinion.
I too want to compliment the applicant on the work done and circling back to us with a couple detailed letters as well as additional photographs. I think a lot of time and expense went into their proposal. As far as cell phone tower aesthetics goes, I mean, I don't even notice them anymore, frankly. So it's I think we're just so accustomed we don't even look at them anymore. Kind of like almost the way people drive in this town, almost like stop signs. Don't even notice those anymore. And then Mr. Weiss, I really appreciate you coming back to your home community. I'm thankful for your continued ownership of property in the city of Holyoke. I hope that your aspirations are able to be realized down the road with whomever you're working with the city officials. I know that any city councilor and the Ward 6 councilor, which I believe your property is in Ward 6, Ward 6 councilor is right over there. You can address concerns with him. All our emails and phone numbers are online, or at least most of us are anyhow, and so you can raise any questions you want at that point. I think I didn't hear anything from your argument that really prompts me to vote other than in support of this application. So that's how I feel about it. So with that, we have a motion before us to grant the special permit with 9 conditions that we've reviewed exhaustively tonight. I will have them in pristine typed condition tomorrow for those that need to read this, and we will, for Wednesday, and we'll go from there. So on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion's granted, or recommended at this point. So we will take this before the full city council. We just recommend at this level, so we will argue to recommend this to the full city council. They will vote on this one way or another on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So thank you all for being here. Just one final motion will do it.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Keep going.
Thanks for letting us go back and we were thinking about it. I'm like, I want to do something. Poor guys. Sorry, but and that's why we shrunk it in, and it was my fault. I misspoke at the prior meeting. I thought they were 10. They were the 14-foot ones. Yeah. So we got that cleared up. It does look better than it did. Yeah.
I think we can push it back from the neighborhood.
I think so. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
That's where we are. All right. Well,
go back to Albany. Well, I live in Lake George, actually. But, see it.
I was like, George these days. A long time since I've been up there.
It's nice. It's still got it sorted out its problems. But it's, associated with limited to 3 months.
Yeah.
But at the end of those 3 months, you're kind of glad to see everybody go. Yeah, the thing is, I fight through the winters to keep it.
Over here somewhere. I know it's up there. I started young though.
Yeah, I'm an elected official
Oh, yeah?
in the village of Lake George. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Trustee is what we call it. Councilman, right? Is it?
Counselors, yeah. When I began, we were aldermen.
Alderman. Okay, that was the old term, right?
Chicago. Changed it. There's a few left in the country, but not many.
Very minimal.
I was looking at it, yeah.
Immediately over 40 feet, so talking about 4
Yeah.
feet, an estimate. But also offered for us to buy it probably. 20,000. So I guess.
Well, this deal we have is unique. You must be a little familiar with the area up there, but we've used the money so far to renovate the park down below at the bottom of the access road. It's called Community Field. It's gorgeous.
I heard it mentioned a couple of times.
You know, it was in disarray. Was parkland. We hope someday. That used to be right where you were. Used to be Scott Tower was a big, mostly passive picnic area park. But the state even had a pool, a state pool up there for years. That was, yeah. They begged it. They gave it up because they couldn't keep it. Well, it was security overnight.
Oh, okay.
The vandalism was unbelievable.
Oh, I saw some pictures in an article I read about a bunch of graffiti that was up
Yeah.
in that area and on the tower itself, the Scott Tower.
When I was a little boy, I used to walk I lived about 7 blocks from here up to the tower. We walked to the top and walked back home. And when we were teenagers, we had a pool down here, but when it was every other day was a male gender. You could only the girls and boys had to swim separate in those days.
Oh, you had to. They weren't allowed in the same pool.
On Girls' Day, we would walk up to Shamora. And then in college, a couple of my buddies became lifeguards up there, and we had a lot of fun.
Oh, especially on Girls' Day.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful pool. It was L-shaped with a high diving board. It was really nice. So we hope someday to reopen that whole area, make it more accessible.
Sounds like you got a good start on it.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance to see the park, they did a lot with it. Matter of fact, there's even not a rink, but it's like an ice skating road, I guess, the best pathway. It's well used. Put a dog park anywhere. It's a big picnic area and a lot of stuff for kids.
When the weather gets better and we actually get started on the project, I'll be able to check it out.
Check it out.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of land up there. Unfortunately, some of it is landlocked. Some of it is landlocked.
He's landlocked.
I'm sorry. I
After
listened.
91,
Yeah,
the 91
I know.
I used
I
to
know.
play up there when I was a kid. I'd ride my bike up the Scotts Tower.
I was just telling, we were just talking about that. We'd walk up there on Girls' Day down here for Ward 4 pool. We'd walk up there to Shamora. We'd go up the tower, and it was quite a place.
The swampland up there.
Yeah.
Strawberry skunk cabbage.
It was.
At the Dingle.
Uh,
That was before 91.
Yeah.
Old enough.
I remember going to Wyckoff Park bunch of my friends, I don't know what we were thinking. So we're gonna go up, we can caddy for the day. And there literally was when there were construction on 91, I don't know how we get up there. And they're, Whitecoppers, they lost so many holes or reconfigured them, over that period. And that was, 91 changed the city big time. And the original course was not up there, half. When 91 leaves Springfield, it goes 20 miles west. It's just really becoming true north when it gets back up here at Smith's Ferry. The original 91 was what's 391 now, which would have came right into downtown Holyoke. And the only reason there's 391 is because Chicopee cried when they took it, because Holyoke fought it because it was going to cut Mackenzie Field by a third and go down Beach Street. And they said that they thought that would have killed the city. And, now this created the location for the Holyoke Mall, but other than that, it landlocked and destroyed a lot of residential neighborhoods. Not destroyed, but hurt.
I've talked, as I mentioned, I've talked with three officials. My proposal, since I have your attention, and I didn't get your name.
I'm Joe McGivern. McGivern.
McGivern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I knew your uncle.
Sure
We all knew your uncle.
You all did. The idea I've come up with is about a billboard. I know that a billboard is not something that gets immediately behind, but look at all the different things. Number one, it's not in the sight line of any home, because of 91 blocks there. It's wooded so that people using the park aren't seeing it.
Yep.
But it's a good location for,
Take care now. Have a good ride.
for traffic. And hang on, I'll be
You better tell Kevin this one.
I already have. He's one of the three.
Yeah, I'm one of the three he's called.
And, but the idea that I propose is, if I could be allowed to do this, then it makes sense to me. I mean, mindful of civic needs here, saying a good way that this works is that some of the income, something like, I don't know, maybe keep a portion of the income, maybe even sell a portion of the income, some quick payment with the, and then you can return it to parkland, you can do whatever you want. Exchange for giving me a chance. I create.
I always keep an open mind, but I'll be honest, I hate billboards.
Nobody sees that. That's the thing about it. Nobody sees it up there. It's only the traffic. It doesn't bother any homeowner.
91 hurt a lot of people.
It did.
All the good it does for us.
I wonder how they compensated people.
I was just saying, remember, we were talking about up to Scotch Tower when we were kids.
Yeah.
I remember when the Whitecoff to the golf, we said we'd go up and make a few bucks academy.
Yeah.
I remember they had mounds of dirt.
Was Wyckoff there before 91?
Yeah, they actually had to reconfigure like 3 or 4 holes.
Yes.
They lost land. It's smaller than it was. Oh, wow. It's still pretty big.
It is, yeah. See, I mean, I'm younger, so I'm not as old as you guys. I don't know what it is, all this pre-91 stuff, you know?
Well, I was 10 years old, so let's not go.
Okay.
Maybe 12. When the engineers noticed my picture up there, he said, "You've been around a while, huh?" Started young.
That's right.
Kevin started young too. He's been around 20 years. And I was 39.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you,
Oh, yeah, our friend, Buddy.
willing to, from what you said,
91
muffins. I'm ready for a real supper now. See you later.